What does it feel like when the thing that's driven you your entire life just goes quiet? For Carly, that feeling in her gut, the one that had been whispering, keep going, since she was a kid, disappeared right around 30. And then came a second cancer diagnosis, and then came clarity that she never expected. Carly's an actor, a teacher, a storyteller, and someone who has learned, maybe the hard way, that making it means whatever you decide it means. This is her life shift.
But I was diagnosed with my second cancer in 2023, which is the life moment shift that I first wrote to you about. It kind of sent me further into the hole that I was already in. And it was also the thing that sprung me out of it and really kind of helped me find the clarity that I had been looking for.
You're listening to the Life Shift Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Gilhooly. This show is built around one simple idea, that sometimes a single moment can change how we see everything. Each week, I talk with someone about the moment that shifted their life and how they learned to live differently after it. These are not stories about having it all figured out. They are stories about what it looks like to keep going once the story changes. Thank you for being here. Here's today's story. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Life Shift Podcast. I'm here with Carly. Hello, Carly.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for wanting to be a part of this really beautiful journey that I've been lucky enough to be on with the Life Shift Podcast. I mean, I guess I created it, but at the same time, it just feels like it's taken on its own life, which is really beautiful for me, someone who grew up not talking all the deep conversations, kind of understanding that there were certain things that we just don't talk about and we can't be curious about because they're not our business. When I've really found through all these conversations that listening to people's stories in the way that they want them to be told is really valuable for me as a listener, because I understand the human condition. We might have wildly different stories, but the way that we feel about certain moments in our lives are very similar to each other. So thank you for, before you even share your story, for just wanting to be a part of it.
Yeah, I love listening. And I think what you're doing is incredibly important to feel community, to feel less alone on this winding road. Yeah. It's,
when I was 8, my mom was killed in an accident, and I was told, not directly, but kind of told that I wasn't supposed to talk about it. I wasn't supposed to be sad for a certain amount of time. I was supposed to push it down. And now I think if I had access to hearing stories like I hear on the Life Shift Podcast when I was younger, thinking, oh, wow, I'm not the only one with a dead mom. I knew logically I wasn't, but it felt very isolating. And so to hear that, I think of all those people out there that you probably know of as well, that feel really alone in something that other people, unfortunately or fortunately, share similar experiences about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, before we get into your story, can you tell us who Carly is in 2026? How do you show up in the world? How do you identify these days?
Love this question. It's such a great place to start, because I think I've been very reflective, I'll say, in the year of 2026. And I think I'm kind of reached a point in my life where I can really appreciate how the answer to this question changes so much truly every year. So I'm a lot of things, right? I'm a partner and a daughter and a dog mom. I'm a performer. I'm a teacher. I love being creative. I love challenging myself. But I feel like this period of my life has been sort of reevaluating myself, or just evaluating myself outside of certain identities or accomplishments or milestones that I think I used to cling more tightly to. And I don't know, maybe part of this is sort of the after effect of the life shifts that we're going to talk about. Maybe also it's just sort of a natural part of aging, kind of the difference between your 20s and your 30s. But
wait till you hit 40.
Yeah, I think it's just I'm clinging less to the identity and more just sort of trying. I don't know if I fully have accepted it, but trying to accept that I am an ever evolving person.
Yeah. I don't think we're taught that.
And kind of trying to not fear uncertainty, but accept it as just, it is life, right? Is that you don't know what you're going to be next year.
In your field.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that uncertainty. No, I think it's really interesting because a lot of people I talk to, I'm in my mid 40s, and so a lot of people in my generation, it was very much like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it was very definitive of like, you should know when you're 18 because you're going to go to college, and that's just what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And I think now when I talk to people that are in like that I graduated with, we're all reevaluating like you are now and like choosing different directions and going against all the things that we kind of assumed we were supposed to do. No one really told us that we needed to, but we just kind of assumed that. So it sounds like you're on a similar journey of like really shedding some of the things of maybe the way you identified in the past.
Yeah. One, I think, we're probably generationally close enough that we did experience that similar mentality, of you grow up and you go to college, and I feel like millennials, we were very much taught this very specific path, and you'll have hit certain marks or you'll do certain things. And I think all the time, like if I had a kid that was going to college or that age, I don't know what I would advise them, but I would not advise them the way I was advised, certainly. Because I don't know if college was necessarily the best thing for me. But at the time, there was just no other.
That was your option.
That was
the only
it.
thing. Yeah. Yeah. No, I call it the checklist life that I used to live. It was very much graduate high school, go to college, get a good job, buy a nice car, buy a house, like it was just all the things. And you check them off and you're like, this one's going to bring me happiness. And then you get to the next one and you're like, maybe the next one.
Yeah. So. I feel like even subconsciously, I feel like I believed that eventually I would sort of figure adulthood out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I just need to do a few more things, and in a few years I'll really have this life thing all figured out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then now I'm like, I don't think that's coming actually.
Also, and do we want that? Like I think we did want that, and now I'm sure you're seeing this now as you're more reflective here in 2026. It's kind of exciting to kind of find new versions of ourselves and kind of move through the world maybe a little differently than we did before and experience it in different ways. So kudos to you for finding this space and creating this version of you, and may it continue to evolve into all the things that you want. I'm sure there'll be ups and downs, but that's kind of fun too, in a way.
Cheers, like sort of cheersing to all the past versions of myself and all the future versions.
They got you here, those past versions. So, they've given you what you have right now. And I wouldn't trade them, as bad as some of the moments were. I wouldn't trade them because I wouldn't be in this moment and being able to experience things in this way. So speaking of story, let's maybe I'll have you paint the picture of your life leading up to this main pivotal moment that we're going to talk about today, this life shift moment. I fully understand that you've probably had many life shift moments in your life. So maybe give us the before version of Carly leading up as far back as you need to go to kind of paint that version of you.
Yeah, I'm an actor. I grew up, very much a theater kid.
Same.
Very bullied for being a theater kid.
Same.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, at this point.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, even the bullying, right? Similar. It's like that is, I've spent many years in therapy kind of unpacking the person that shaped me into. But yeah, who knows who I would have been as a kid, who I would be now if it weren't for all of those things. And I went to school for musical theater. I was like very tunnel vision, like, I'm going to be on Broadway.
Like as
like no one could.
Young age too?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I think I had that sort of like, I'm a very self-aware person, but I think I had that healthy dose of delusion that you need in order to like be an artist of any kind. And, and I was very fortunate to have parents that didn't really, at least to me, maybe to themselves, they had question marks and concerns, but like to me, they didn't show that. They just said like, we'll help you figure this out. Right. Yeah. Like we don't know what this path looks like for you, but we will support you and help you figure it out. Behind the scenes, I certainly had teachers who said like, don't do that. But I moved to New York, and I think, I just very much, I felt like I knew who I was. I was a very like strong-willed kid,
Mm-hmm. You did the typical move like after college or for college?
After college. Okay. Yeah. At 22. And I think that's, we'll maybe get into this more, but that was one of those identities I really clung to of like, I moved to New York at 22 and supported myself in this really hard place. And that was like a point of pride where I felt like this is part of my identity that I had to eventually let go of. But yeah, I think I just, I think it's typical of any 22-year-old, right? Like you think you know who you are. You think you have so much figured out. You think you know what your life is going to be like.
You're making it happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a really fun time in my life, right? When I think back to my mid-20s and living in New York City, like what a blast. But
what were you doing? Were you booking jobs? What was that experience for you?
so I moved there to do theater, but actually within my first year, discovered and decided that I actually mostly wanted to do film and television rather than theater, which has mostly been my journey since then. And I felt like I really want to figure it out. I was I'm the kind of person that if not knowing something doesn't intimidate me, I just feel the pressure to figure it out. And so I really just kind of threw myself into that scene in New York, writing and producing my own things so that I could learn what that looked like. Working, I started like a lot of actors do, just working background on big sets so that I could figure out what it's like to be on a big set, just doing anything I could get my hands on.
That's smart, though. I think you mentioned the word delusion, but that is not, to me, you were working for it. Like, I think I mean, you probably were in classes with some theater kids that had quote unquote delusion, like they thought everything was going to pour into their laps and everything was going to work out that way. But it sounds like you were putting in the grunt work, whether,
Yeah, thank you. No, I was a really hardworking kid for sure. I mean, I worked really hard to, achieve the things that I wanted to achieve. I think when I say delusion, it's that I think to convince yourself that that's the right thing to pursue, you just have to kind of, I don't know what to call it, but I think I had a lot of self-doubt, probably coming from being bullied, right? I think like most people, right? I had a lot of insecurities. I never felt like I was the most talented person in the room or the prettiest person in the room or the funniest person, right? Whatever it was, like, right? I had all these insecurities. But even despite that, I had this kind of pit in my gut, like this feeling in my gut that just was always there that said, but if you just keep going, you'll make it.
Yeah. Was part of that like this is the only thing I want to do? Did you have other backup things that you thought maybe you wanted to do? Because I think with one big dream and no backup, it could be the direction people go.
Yeah. I'm good at a lot of things. I think also maybe that's part of that curse of as you get older too, of like, just because I'm good at something doesn't mean I should do it necessarily. So like figuring out like, okay, well, what are the things that actually bring me joy? And that was also part of that sort of early mid-20s journey in New York too. I kind of discovered early on that I didn't really enjoy the sort of like starving artist cliche that I feel like was very fed to us of like, you just move to New York and you hustle and you grind and you work all these shitty jobs that you hate so that sometimes you can be an actor, like that's like the vision that was I feel like instilled in us. And then I got there and I thought that's not a very nice way to live and like not a very nice way to treat myself. And, being an artist, I think I identified pretty early on that like being an artist is a long game, right? And if you want to stay in it for the long game, you have to, at least for me, I felt like I have to fill my life with other pockets of joy.
That's very mature.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think, I really caught on to that, at a young age. And so I went after kind of like other careers and other things that I enjoyed that I liked. Because I thought I can be good at other things, like maybe it's not my ultimate passion and dream to be an actor. But while I'm on the pursuit of that, I want to also fill my days with things I love. So I feel like I've lived many lives in my career. I've done many different things. But a lot of that stems back to those kind of early adulthood years of just trying a lot of things, figuring out what's not for you. Like, okay, just because I'm good at this, but I don't like it. Or actually, I'm not good at this thing. I'm not going to do that anymore. Whatever it is, lesson. Right? Yeah. It's a lot of trial and error in life.
And you were in a place in which there were a lot of options, I'm guessing, because it's such a populated city or area, if you will, to be able to try those things. So you were hustling to kind of make a happy life, would you say? A joy-filled life?
I think so. I just was really in the pursuit of like, I want to enjoy, all of it, not just the moments where I get to do acting or get to do performing. I want to enjoy everything that I'm doing. And what does that look like? I think also, I lost, this isn't the life shift moment we're here to discuss, but I lost my dad in my mid-20s as well. And I think that, those first big experiences of loss are also a really shifting moment too, where you think, okay, I want, like, what is the meaning of life? I think that was like a first one for me. I feel like I'm telling my story a little out of order, but
that's fine. This is your story.
that sort of like pit in my stomach feeling that I was talking about earlier, I had it. And it was always this sort of constant thing that grounded me. And it went away when I turned 30. It all of a sudden it disappeared, or it started to feel shaky, which I think was sort of the first turning point in this life shift and it really scared me. I think just turning 30, not that 30 is old by any means. I didn't feel old, but I think it is a milestone, right? Kind of turning the page of a new decade.
Yeah.
And thinking, okay, do I like where my life is? Do I like where my life is heading? Maybe I'm not meant to be an actor, right? Those fears and self-doubt really crept in hard in that moment. And it scared me because I just felt like, okay, it's not like I've always been this overly confident person, but I always had that pit in my stomach that told me to keep going. And now that's not there. Yeah. So like, what
does life
what is life without that? Yeah.
How do you push through that? Do you push through that? What happens?
Yeah. Well, part of it was the pandemic, that would have been 2022. So we were sort of really, I feel like at that point, life was starting to come back to the new normal. And then we were really grappling with all the things that the pandemic had changed. It was kind of like I came up for air and I looked around the room and I saw all the things that were different than they were 2 years earlier. And I thought, oh, I don't like a lot of this. And some of it was of my own making. Some of it was because of the pandemic, things out of our control. Yeah, I feel like 2022 was just this really weird, fuzzy year where I was like, what is life? My life? The world's life? Like, what are we all doing?
Would you classify that as like I think a lot of people went through evolution during the pandemic. A lot of people fell into a little bit of a depressive state as well. With those two things coinciding for you, were you less happy about was there less joy because of those things? Did you feel like, I don't know, forlorn more than you normally did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. Yeah. I think it was a time of depression for a lot of people and just questioning and, I mentioned earlier about like certain identities that I used to cling to. I left New York in those 2 years, which I don't know if I would have done if it hadn't been for the pandemic, but that sort of led off a chain of events that led to me leaving New York. So it was like I just looked up one day and my life was so different. And I just thought, this isn't what I planned. I don't think this is what I want. My career isn't. Yeah, I don't know. It was a weird, and time felt so mushy too, right? Like I think I talk about that still with friends where we can't believe it's been 6 years now since the pandemic, right? Because that felt.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like.
We're still missing things from the before times. And the thing here is that globally, I don't think you're alone in that feeling of looking down and then looking back up and everything is different. There's so many of us, like everybody's life's changed in drastically, even if they weren't, living this life that was in front of people all the time. So I think that's very relatable. But to add to this, you're losing your identity because you're no longer a New Yorker, if you will, or you're no longer pursuing that, especially in your career choice. A lot of things shut down, right? Like you weren't able to do as much, maybe.
Yeah. Well, that's part of, why we left. My partner and I neither of us were back to work, and, kind of in late 2020, right?
Yeah.
And our very expensive Brooklyn lease was due. And we just thought, why? It doesn't make sense to stay here when neither of us are back to work. Our industries are shut down, so it was absolutely the right decision at the time. But then so much, it was like so much then unfolded in the next year and a half.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was like the pandemic was just that obviously very large thing that set off a domino of individual things for each of us that looked a little differently, but it was just like all of a sudden I looked up and everything was different, and I felt just really, yeah, like the ground was shaky. I didn't know who I was. I felt like I was really clinging to this 2019 version of Carly that I already felt so far away from. But then again, time was mushy, so it felt like yesterday, but also like, years had gone by. And I really started to think, okay, maybe I'm not an actor. Maybe what am I, right? And I went through this whole journey, but I was diagnosed with my second cancer. Didn't even get to the first one yet, but I was diagnosed with my second cancer in 2023, which is the life moment shift that I first wrote to you about. And that it kind of sent me further into the hole that I was already in. And it was also the thing that sprung me out of it and really kind of helped me find the clarity that I had been looking for.
Was this, I'm glad that you're here, and hopefully all the things have progressed in the way that you hope.
Yes, I'm healthy.
But curious about that. Was it a surprise to you? Was it something that was building up? Was it something you were noticing? I mean, you don't have to give me all the details, but curious if it was like a confirmation of something you were feeling, or if it was just a blindsiding moment for you.
It was pretty blindsiding. I mean, I started to have some symptoms a couple months before being diagnosed, so which is what prompted, testing and things. So in that sense, like things are happening, you're going through the diagnosis process. I had been there before, but up until that moment, yeah, it was a total blindside. My first cancer diagnosis was when I was 19, and I really didn't properly address it, which I realized the second time around. So I think also being diagnosed the second time, I was processing that. And in a lot of ways, I was processing my first diagnosis.
And life that was happening to you, the loss of the gut feeling that you had driving you for so long. So you have all of this compounding at the same time.
It was a very strange time.
We often talk about, or I like to talk about, this line in the sand type moment. Would you classify, and this is, if it's too personal, then tell me to shut up, but curious if you look back at that moment and why you chose that particular moment as your line in the sand. Was it like when when the doctor said the words? Was it 10 minutes later? Was it a small moment? Was it, do you know, this is a silly question, but is there a moment where you feel like, oh, that was a line because everything after was different?
Yeah, I don't think I classified it as the line in the sand moment until later.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah, but
in reflection, you mean? Like reflecting on it?
Yeah, well, I think, it's like you're diagnosed and then a lot of things happen very quickly, right? So you almost don't even have the luxury to fully process the thing that's happening in the moment because it's just, okay.
You're project managing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I need to schedule appointments and I need to fight with insurance to get them to approve my life-saving surgery and radiation, treatments and all these things. And your body just goes into like fight mode, right? Where you're just like, I need to just get through this thing. And then you come out the other side and you process it. I definitely went through a really kind of depressive period then as well, where I just felt like, why me? Like, why me again? Right? Like at the time I was 31 when I was diagnosed, I was just like 2 cancers by 31. Like, that's crazy, right? Like my brain just couldn't comprehend it. And I really went through this, like, why me kind of depression moment. And my mom and my partner both, I remember we were sitting on my couch one day and they were just like, this isn't you. Like, this isn't like you to be so, so down. Like you have to be positive to get through it,
How do you feel when they said that?
Well, I kind of put them in their place. I said respectfully, like, I hear you. It's not that, like, logically I understand, right? Like, yes, you have to be positive to get through things. Like, I know.
And they meant well.
Yes, of course. Yeah. They're like the greatest support system I could have ever imagined, right? They were there for me in every way, but I just was like, respectfully, like, I need you to let me go really dark for a bit because this is awful. And I think I just knew myself too, that like, if I didn't let myself fully go dark, I wouldn't fully find my way through. And I think that's later I connected that when I was diagnosed at 19, I didn't do that. I just plowed through with positivity. And I didn't want to be defined I was in college. I was like, I don't want to be cancer girl. Like I'm, I'm 19, right? Like I'm trying to figure out my life. I'm trying to like make connections in college, and I just didn't want. I just kind of ignored it in a lot of ways.
Brush it under the rug, push it down. I mean, it's a story we all get.
Yeah, and then in my 30s, I said, no, I think I need to sit with all of this.
Good for you. I think that's really important for people to hear, though, because the people around us, obviously, they want to see us better. They want to see us happy. They want to see us in our quote unquote normal state.
Yeah.
But it's really hard when we're in that moment. And I think a lot of us can understand your feelings, but I think there's a lot of people that wouldn't stand up for themselves in that way. And I think it's really good to hear that you did that, and unapologetically, because you needed it. That was you needed to, I mean, you knew they were supporting you. So you knew if it got really dark, you were supported, but you knew that you had to face those demons, if you will.
Yeah. And I think I trusted myself, and they trusted me in that moment enough too, to say, okay, like we trust you to go do
also,
what you need to do.
It, right? Like, I feel like if it was really bad, you wouldn't have said it.
Sure.
You would have said, okay, and then done your own thing and like get really dark and pretend that everything is fine, which is worse, right? Like we can get ourselves into a lot of trouble when people aren't aware of how we're really feeling. So I applaud that. I don't mean to derail, but I think it's really important. I do it now. If I relate to my grief journey after my mom died, it took me 20 years to fully process. So like, kind of like your first cancer diagnosis. It wasn't until when my grandmother got sick with cancer that I learned, like, basically I reflected on that whole grief journey in this way, kind of like your second diagnosis. So I get it. It's, you have to just go through it.
Yeah.
So you think that you get this dark point. Would you say maybe, is there a moment that you remember where things weren't as dark for you? Like, was there a switch? What did that look like for you?
I think it was an evolving process through that year, through my treatment, but I think once you turn the corner for yourself and you feel like, okay, I'm not dying. I'm okay. I'm going to feel better soon. Like when you really start to see kind of that light at the end of the tunnel when you're going through something like that, I think I was able to like get out of the fight mode and say, okay, now I just get to heal, not only physically, but also mentally and emotionally. And that was when I really started to embrace what that moment had done for me, and all of that uncertainty. Like I said, like I feel like it dropped me further into the hole that I was already in that had nothing to do with cancer, right? It dropped me further into that, but then it also, on the other end, once I knew I was going to be okay, it kind of helped spring me out to say, you know what? Like, I don't know why this was my life path. I'll never know why, but it is. And life is just too short. Even if you live a long life, right? Life is short, and it's too short to spend so many years second guessing myself, not pursuing the things that I love, not doing the things that I love, I think I just freed, not that I'm the most confident person in the world now and I have no insecurities, but I think it freed me of a lot of the insecurities that I did have, in my younger adulthood, and the things that were maybe holding me back from being an actor, those fears and things. And I just thought, and even kind of where I started the conversation too, of like success. What is success? What is, I think I really started to think like, okay, I feel like I failed as an actor because I'm not at this certain milestone by this certain age, but that's a self-made thing, right? Like failure, success is a self-made thing. So, if I just free myself of that and I just do the thing I love because I love it, what does my life look like? And it just like totally changed my whole perspective on myself and
what I wanted. It sounds really easy, but that's hard to do, to shed. But did it make it easier because you were already fighting for your life, if you will, in this cancer battle? And I don't know if you call it a battle, but what you went through.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who've gone through, these life shift moments, these line in the sand moments,
Yeah.
know it in different ways, but it's a similar feeling of life is fragile, and all we have really is this like present moment that we're in. Yeah, I just didn't want to burden myself with stress. And I think it was like, okay, I just went through a really hard thing. I think this is what it is, right? It's like I just went through this really hard thing that most people wouldn't even be able to imagine. So I know I can do hard things.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can do that, like
Yeah.
I can do anything else, right? It's sort of like it just makes you feel like, oh, I know hard and this isn't hard. I can go do these other things that I want to do.
So perspective, essentially.
Perspective. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Changes it. Did you feel like it was these are all cliches, so forgive me, but like a new lease on life? Did it feel like a blank slate? Did it feel like a continuation of a younger Carly's life journey? Like what did it feel like as you started to recreate this life that you actually wanted to lean into?
That's a good question. I don't know if I've thought about it in those terms, but I wouldn't say it was a clean slate. I do think it was a continuation after maybe a pause, right?
Okay.
Like after I had been in this sort of paused, fuzzy place for a few years, I felt like it was continuing, but as a new person than I was.
Different drive, different motivation, or... And there's no right answer, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm just curious.
No, it's a great question. I don't know. You know how they say that like getting older is just kind of falling back in love with the things you loved as a kid, or like falling back into the person you were as a kid. I feel like it was sort of that, right? Mixed with the natural progression of, I think that a version of that happens to everybody, right? Where it's just like, no, I know who I am. I know the things I've always loved. And I just don't want to second guess myself so much. I just want to keep moving forward and accept that it is ever changing, right? Like I said at the beginning, like let's catch up in a year and I'll probably say something different, right? Like I think it's just, and that's okay too, right? That I know who I am kind of at the core, and I'm going to try my best to embrace that there will be things in life I can't control, like a pandemic, like losing my dad, like cancer diagnosis, those things are going to keep happening because that's life. But I just need to accept as best I can. I don't know.
I think that's self-awareness.
I hate to say I hate to sound like I have it all figured out, because I most certainly do not.
No, none of us do. And I don't think anyone's going to take that you figured out the meaning of life and, how to move forward. But I think the perspective shift happens. And I think what's kind of unique, or where my brain is going, having grown up, well, at least middle school and high school, I didn't go any further, but with theater kids and theater people, some of them were doing this, and I don't know which side you associate with. Some of them were doing it for this internal feeling, this joy, and some people were doing it for the approval, being seen, the applause, if you will. Was any of your journey one or the other, or was it, like where did you lie within your creative outlets and why you chose that direction?
Yeah, I love that. I love that perspective. I did it as a kid for the internal. And I think because I've talked about this with a lot of performer friends where, theater kids get a bad rep because they think of the cliche, like, oh, you must love to be the center of attention. You're a drama queen, or you're whatever, right? They think of those things. But actually most theater kids, at least the ones I was friends with, we were all like painfully introverted and bullied, and theater was our safe space. It was like a place where you could be someone else for a little bit, you could step into another life, and it was a form of therapy,
right. Or hiding.
Yeah, a little bit. It's like a protection where you're like, okay, maybe I don't know how to move through the world as Carly yet, but I know how to step onto a stage and be whatever character I was playing, right? And it was just because it was my therapy. It was my form of joy. It was for me. Not that I disliked getting applause, but that's not why I did it, Actually, I think for me, when I think back to it, I loved making an audience laugh more than even the applause. Like when someone would laugh, I feel like that was what really like fueled me. But I think now I'm reflecting on it from your question, I think over the years, maybe it slowly shifted away from this thing I love to, oh, I need to reach certain milestones to impress people, to add things to my resume, to post on social media, to, right? Like I need to show people that I'm doing the thing.
Right.
Or I'm
And
not
I didn't
really,
fail at it.
yeah, like I'm not really an actor unless I can prove to people
Yep.
in some way, right?
Yeah. Or get away from those I told you so. Told you shouldn't have moved to New York.
Yeah, you should have done something else with your
And you got to
life.
make a living with something. I think that's natural as well, though, because you do have to prove yourself in a way, because you do need to pay the bills in that function that you've chosen to do because you love it. But also there's this element of, I think we get wrapped up in as adults, is that we have to prove. Whether for me it was like I have to prove I'm worth this by getting the next promotion so that I can tell people that I got a promotion, right? And it's
I think
like,
no matter what your
why?
career path is,
Right.
right? We all experience that in some way, and I think it subtly shifts over time. So it's not a conscious thing. At least for me, it wasn't conscious as it was happening, but I think that's part of, turning 30 and kind of looking up and thinking like what am I doing? I think that was all part of it. And in my line in the sand moment, it was about saying, no, I do this because I love it. For me, it's internal, right? And I will keep doing it forever because I love it, not because I need to hit a milestone or I need to prove to anyone else why I do it. And I think that is actually what really shifted. And back to, just finding what I loved about it in the first place.
Do you think that it makes you better that way? Like better at what you do, and because you're doing it, because now you have this it's a different motivation. It really is. It's going back to that old one, but it's still, you're leaning into it because you love it. Does it make you better because you love it and not because you're trying to do it for other people? Not, you weren't doing that fully, but
Yeah, it probably does, right? I think, and that's part of what I was feeling in those years where I was feeling a lot of uncertainty. I was also looking at my audition tapes and going, this is bad.
you got to have bad ones though.
Yeah,
Like you really have
yeah.
to.
Of course. Yeah, they're not all gems, but it was like consistently I was like I don't enjoy I don't enjoy auditioning. I look at the tape, I don't feel proud. What am I doing? And I think it was just like it was all of these things slowly over time really bogged me down, and I lost a lot of the joy in it. Not because I didn't want to do it anymore, didn't love it, but it just got all mixed up.
Yeah.
Got all jumbled up.
What do you feel is the biggest difference between pandemic Carly and 2026 Carly?
Gosh, I mean, it's funny to think about that too, because even just globally, so much has happened in those years, right? Like I feel like my personal perspective has shifted, my global perspective has shifted. I feel very different. And I think a lot of people do, right? We all just feel this massive change from who we were.
Right, but pre-cancer too, or
And
pre-second.
pre-cancer. Yeah, I mean, in this moment, I feel much lighter than I
was gonna say
did.
that.
Yeah.
It seems like from the way that you tell your pre-story and the way that you show up now, there is something about you that's a lighter when you talk about life now.
Yeah. I think I realized how much pressure I put on myself then.
Yeah. I think we all do until we don't. Like, I feel like there has to be this break moment in which we are, forgive me for saying this, but lucky enough to hit this moment in which now we can shed some of the things that were just too heavy for us to carry. We didn't need to carry them. They weren't ours to carry, but we did anyway, because that's what we were trained to do in whatever way that was, and it's nicer to be lighter. And to your point, it doesn't mean that we don't have bad days. It doesn't mean that, we have it all figured out. Like, we're still human. We're still messing it up on a regular, and that's okay.
Yeah. And I think that's what it is. That's exactly what it is, right? There's still days or hours where I'm very hard on myself, where I put a lot of pressure on myself for things. But then I remember.
Do you love all your tapes now?
More. I love
More
most
of
of them
them.
now.
Okay,
Yeah. There's still a bad one every once in a while.
Gotta have them.
That's part of the artistic process.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think, even in moments where I'm being really hard on myself, the next morning I wake up and I think that was silly. Or, like it's like I remind myself of what I've gone through, and I don't let that heaviness, I try not to let that heaviness weigh me down for too long.
I think the world is different now too, to your point. We're going through a lot in the last couple years. And so sometimes that makes me reflect on like, why are you worrying about this little thing, Matt, when all of this is happening? Like, you're doing the best you can, and that's good enough right now, and that I think for me, the key was finding the true self-awareness and acknowledgement that however I'm feeling at any moment is valid. And growing up, it wasn't, in my mind. It wasn't okay if I was sad, if I was depressed. It wasn't okay, because that's just how I figured the world around me needed to see that I was fine and I was perfect. And so now it's just like, hey guys, it's a bad day today, and that's okay. I have the tools and I know that I'm going to make it through. So bear with me.
My patience for small talk has gone down a lot. I'm just like, let's just get into it. Like, how are you really feeling today? What's your biggest fear right now? Like let's just talk, because
let's talk about religion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I'm trying to show up in the world more authentically too, to your point of not just saying like, yep, everything's fine, I'm good. Like, which is hard to do, and sometimes, and not everyone is on that same path with us, and that's okay. But it helps you find your people.
Yeah, exactly.
You talked about too with, when you go through these moments, and like you did with your mom, feeling, even though your logic brain knows other people have experienced this, it's very easy to feel isolated and alone, like no one can understand me. I think that's also something that really shifted for me in the second diagnosis. I was going to the hospital every day for treatment. They kept trying to suggest cancer support groups to me, but everyone there was much older than me. And even for my, I had salivary gland cancer the second time, and that was like most common in, males who were in their like 60s to 80s. And I just felt like not that I wouldn't have a great conversation with them, but that's not necessarily where I'm gonna.
Different stage of life. And
yeah. And so I turned to TikTok, and I started a TikTok account, and my first video was literally just, I'm going through this thing and I'm looking for other people who are going through it too. And it was kind of just a call into the void to see if anyone responded. And people did. And I still have this TikTok page 3 years later. I still get comments. I don't make videos as much anymore, but I really documented my process, made a lot of videos answering people's questions. And I still get comments on the videos. I still get DMs probably once a week at least from people who say, I was recently diagnosed, or my kid was recently diagnosed. Can I ask you questions? And I know how much it means to people to see my videos, right? Like I get those comments that are like, I was so scared, and then I saw you and it made me feel like things are going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I just think it matters so much. And I think, that's part of what this podcast is. So and that also helped me heal in a big way. Being
sharing
able to,
your story.
Yeah. Like back to the sort of like, why me, mentality that I was in at the time. Talking to others helped me shift that narrative for myself too, of like, maybe it's me because I'm here to help someone else. Like, even if I just help one person, if I point one person in the right direction, or give one person advice that changes their treatment plan or changes their outlook or whatever it is, then maybe that's the why, right? At least that's what I'm going to tell myself, because it feels, it helps to create some meaning in the chaos.
I also just think I say selfishly, for me, like, this podcast has been so healing, because being able to share my story openly, hearing other people's stories, like, I can imagine how, maybe without even noticing, how helpful it was for you to just create those videos, get the words out of your head. Because I don't know about you, but for me, the words in my head are much scarier than when I put them out or write them down on paper. So was that a healing experience for you? Not the connection part, but just sharing it in that way.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was it was wanting, it was just wanting to put it somewhere. Yeah, out of my head. Because I think I also, as wonderful as my support system is, I didn't have any friends who could really relate to any of it, in a real, like, tangible way. And I just felt like there's a lot I want to say, and I don't know where to say it. And I'm just going to put it into these videos and hope, I think I did know, like, I hope it finds the right people that need to hear it. But even if it's just for me, I think it helps still.
Yeah. And if it was 20 years ago, you would have put it in your journal, right? And it would have helped you. But now we have, this is the good side of technology and social media, is this opportunity to help others while also helping yourself without being self-serving or anything like that. It's just really putting it out there and creating community with people you might never even meet. Like, I'm sure you get these couple DMs even now every week, but like back when you were getting a lot, but they were like, how many of the people were watching your videos and just not reaching out, but still affected by them? So I'm sure that you've impacted way more than you could have ever imagined just by being you and being honest and sharing your experience, so that people don't have to go through it alone, because who knows what their support system look like.
Yeah, I hope so. Sometimes I'll look at, like, some of the more viral videos and how many saves they have on them. And that's what I think about, right? Like, all the people that didn't reach out, but they saved this video, obviously for a reason. I can't imagine who would just randomly save a video about talking about cancer treatment, but maybe there's weirdos on the internet who would do that. But
I'm sure there are a few, but I'm guessing that most of the saves were probably people that needed that video and not so much weirdos, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Whatever. There's a lot of weirdos everywhere, and
that's
they make
okay.
dinner parties interesting, right?
Yeah.
If I'm curious, if this lighter version of Carly, if you could go back to the Carly that we didn't really talk about, but that 19-year-old that got the diagnosis that first time, is there anything that you would want to tell her?
I do wish I had processed what was happening a little bit more at the time. I try to not live with regrets, and, we have talked about, like, who knows, right? Like, one thing changes and then everything changes. You just never know where you'd be or who you'd be. But I do wish, I think I'd go back and just say, like, it's okay that this is happening to you. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to think about it.
Okay to be sad if you need to.
It's okay to be sad. Yeah, it's okay to do some research on it. Like, don't let it scare you.
Yeah.
Right? Don't let it scare you, but just like fully embrace what is happening a little more. Like, it's all going to be okay. And this is part of your story that you will eventually embrace. I do wish a little bit that I had done that sooner, but
no regrets. We can't change it, but it's always interesting to see when we think about that younger versions of ourselves and what we think we would have needed at that moment. Probably needed a giant hug from someone that understood.
Yeah, I think so too. Because even then, social media was not what it is now. I had a Facebook, but it was, like, wasn't like, it's not like how I used my TikTok the second time around, right? Like, that wasn't a thing. So, I didn't even have Instagram, right? Like, it was just not. So I think I did need community then, and I didn't know how to really find it. And so I just kind of ignored it. And I wish, if I could talk to that person and just say, like, go find some community, like, go, you don't have to fear it.
Yeah.
It's okay to, like, embrace this a little bit.
It's a hard age though. 19, you don't want to listen.
No. Yeah.
No, I do the hard things.
I was just like, I'm fine. I'm good.
Yeah. And lots of people do it, and they do it at older ages. And so I think another takeaway is really just, we have to acknowledge the things that we're going through, because the more we push them down, whether it's grief, whether it's grieving a diagnosis or whatever, it still is grief, whatever, it's going to come back. At least I've found that it's going to come back in some way. It's going to bubble up. It's going to get messier than if you had dealt with it at the beginning. So
yeah, well, and we both kind of experienced that version, right? Where you feel like you fully processed your mom's grief
Yeah.
when you were going through a second grief. And I feel like that's what happened to me. It just all bubbled back up, and I felt like, okay, well, now I need to deal with it.
For
It's
me,
now or never.
For me, it was like when I knew that because I had more time with my grandmother, she became like a mom figure to me. And so like I knew how terrible my experience was after my mom died and all the things I didn't do. So it was like, this was a gift in a weird way, because I knew all the things that I needed to do before, right? Like leading up and saying goodbye and saying all the things. And so I felt like it was a gift that I effed up for 20 years, like, so even in your case, you probably processed and probably spoke out to your support system and said, look, I need to go dark. Like I have to, because you didn't do it the first time. I bet there's some subconscious elements that come in with that, because it's going to come back.
100%. Yeah. It'll always come
back. And who knows? I mean, you maybe haven't even processed it all now, and maybe I haven't either. And that's okay too.
Yeah, certainly. I'm sure someday there'll be some other thing that happens that kicks trigger, it back up again. Right? Yeah, exactly. Of course. Yeah. Absolutely.
But then again, you'll go through that moment and you'll learn from that moment and you'll evolve from that moment. And I think we're luckier because we are evolving in that way, to your very early point of finding this new version of Carly in 2026.
Yeah. I think a big gift that this has all given me is to just try more new things, to challenge myself more, to live with even a little bit less, that fear, that fear of being judged, or fear of the unknown, the uncertainty, and just, I mean, I'm very much a silver linings person. I try to be. I think I almost can't even help it, but I live in Philly, and I came here for my treatment in 2023. This is not where we were living, but they had a special kind of treatment that I wanted to get. And we moved here for the summer to do treatment. And I had to be at the hospital every day, which is kind of a bummer of a summer. And I talked to my partner and I said, I don't want to look back at this summer and just picture hospitals. So as much as I feel like any day I have the energy for it, I want to try and do fun things. And so we would leave the hospital. I was usually there in like kind of the later afternoon. And then we'd leave the hospital and we'd go try a new restaurant, go to a museum, walk around a neighborhood. We tried to like go do things just because I was like, I want to imprint some positivity in this time as well. And then as a result, at the end of the summer, I said, I think we should move here. Like, I think this is the place we've been looking for. We knew we wanted to move, but we didn't know where. I think this is it, and now I look back at that and I think I never would have found, I would not be living in Philly if I had not been diagnosed with cancer, right? Like there's just certain things in your life where you think that would not have happened if that bad thing hadn't happened, this good thing wouldn't have happened. And I try to just remind, there's what's that like philosophy quote where, it's like you live life forward, but it can only be understood backwards. And I think about that a lot in those moments where it's like at the time you don't know where it's going, but then I try and reflect in my reflective year of 2026. I try and reflect back and think, oh yeah, these very big things would be different, and I have to be grateful for them. I have to find that silver lining.
Yeah. I think reflection is a gift, or the ability to truly reflect. I think some people reflect with rose-colored glasses, which I think if we reflect truly and we're pulling out the good things from it, but also acknowledging if there were things that were not so good, but we made it through. And I think that's a skill that we all should hone and, make a little better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm very grateful for the life that I'm trying to build now. I'm doing my best, to just live a life with more joy. I teach improv. That brings me so much joy. I filmed the year in 2024, my first acting job back after all of everything we just talked about. Was my first lead role in a feature film.
That's awesome. It's on Amazon?
It's called The Conspiracists. It's on Amazon Prime. And I remember having all of these moments on set because I was just every day, I was just so grateful and so full of joy. I was having just such an amazing time being there and so grateful to be there. And every day, at least once a day, I'd look up and just think, I'm so glad I didn't quit. I'm so glad I didn't give up acting because I love it so much. And I think too, right, my cancer diagnosis, as horrible as it was a big thing that really helped spring me back into my love of performing, of acting. And who knows, maybe something else would have done it too. But, I kept thinking, like, I'm just so grateful for even that part of my journey, because I think it led me here. It led me to Philly, which led me to this job, which led me to like knowing I wanted to keep pursuing it, right? It's like this chain of events of things. And
do you still have that thing in your stomach? Is it back?
I think it's back. Yeah. And I think it's back, but it's different.
Okay.
Like, I think that it used to be this sense of like, I know I'll make it someday. And now I think it's just, I know I'm going to keep doing it always.
Yeah. It's not about making it.
Making it is, again, this like self-made thing. Like, what does that mean? Right? Like,
whatever you want it to mean.
Whatever we want it to mean. Yeah. So it's, I think now it's just like, I know I'm always going to do this. I do other things too. Do other things that I love. But this will always be there too. And I hold on to that.
I love it. I mean, you've embraced the hard parts, and they've kind of sprung you into this newer perspective, if you will, and back to your younger joys and all the things that you're doing. So I think it's beautiful. I think more people should find you and watch what you're doing and see all those things. So curious, if someone's listening to the story, whether they've had a cancer diagnosis or gone through something similar, maybe they're been in the industry and they have similar feelings and they want to just reach out and tell you their story. Like, what's the best way to find you, get in your space, not literally, but like find you and send you a message or connect with you?
Yeah, please do. You can find me on Instagram at Carly Ott, or if you want to specifically check out my cancer videos, I'm on TikTok, Carly M. Ott. I check my DMs there, like I said, every week, because I still get messages and I know how time sensitive sometimes those messages are. And so I don't want to miss them. If you want to talk about acting things, maybe follow me on Instagram. Instagram is more acting and TikTok is more cancer. And if you want to check out The Conspiracists, you can follow them on Instagram as well at ConConMovie, and it's on Amazon Prime. And yeah, if you watch it, let me know. I love to talk about art with people. So even my own, or if you have a favorite TV show you're watching, you can message me about that too. I think there's just so much joy in talking about art. So I always love it.
Creatives, creators, all the things that come along with it. I think I just encourage people listening that maybe feel seen by something you said. It might not even be a main part of your story, but you said something that resonated with them. I just always encourage people to get the words out of their head, get the thoughts out of their head, and share it with someone else who probably understands. And so I hope you don't mind that I encourage them to do that, but
no, not at all.
I think it's so important.
Yeah, I not at all, because I agree. And I know the power I think feeling seen is one of the greatest gifts we can give another person, to just say, maybe I don't fully understand, but I see you and I hear you. And, I think back to some of the most meaningful times in my life where others have done that for me, and I know how much it means. So if I ever get to do that for someone else, I try to.
But well, thank you for sharing your story in this way and letting me pry and ask questions that
you asked great questions. I feel like I was having new realizations as we talked. This is great.
That's the goal of a conversation, right? We should all aim to do that. So thank you for just showing up in this way and bringing your energy and your lightness to this. It's so needed these days. So thank you for being you and wanting to be a part of this.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for doing what you do.
I will continue to do it. And I still don't know how to end these things after 260 something episodes. So I'm just going to say I'll be back next week with a brand new episode of the Life Shift Podcast. Thanks again, Carly.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Life Shift Podcast. If you want to learn more, go to www.thelifeshiftpodcast.com. There you can check out all the different episodes. You can check out the blog, some of the reviews for the podcast, and the Life Shift Journal. Links are there so you can purchase your own copy, whether in digital or print format. Thanks again.